Hello everyone, this is another physical therapy video. I am your physical therapist, Dr. Mark Veal. This video will be a simple seated exercise video. Everyone should be able to perform these activities as they do not require you to stand up. If you are worried that you are not moving as much as shown, do not feel bad and just try to move as much as you can. There will be a tone when to change positions, so make sure you switch positions when prompted. I hope you enjoy this video. In this first exercise, we are going to gently raise our hands overhead, trying to lift our chest up to the ceiling, allowing our back to nice and easily arch but not hurt. This way we can start stretching out our shoulders and our spine. Stretch down. Now we reach down to our toes, letting our back round and stretch out the opposite direction. Try to breathe into your upper and lower back to let your spine expand and stretch. Stretch up. We reach up overhead again and nice and easily lean back. Try not to lean back into your chair, but instead sit forward in your chair so that way you have plenty of room to lean back without touching it. As we lean back, we don't want to strain our back or hold our breath, so stay loose and breathe normally or slowly. Stretch down. For a second time, we are going to bend over and reach for our toes. Try to really feel your upper back expanding as you breathe into your ribs deeply and let it out slowly. There should be no pain with any of these activities. Stretch up. One more time, we are going to reach up overhead, opening up our chests and bringing our hands over our head. You don't have to look straight up as I do. You can keep your gaze forward as to not strain your neck. Keep things light and make sure you're breathing the whole time. Stretch down. For the last portion of this activity, we are reaching down to our toes and ankles once again. If this upsets your stomach, don't worry about pushing hard and upsetting your stomach, but instead just let your trunk fall gently over your lap as to stretch out your back as much as possible without aggravating your stomach.
Switching activities.
For our next activity, we will be stretching out the side of our ribs down through our spine. So lift one hand up overhead and lean away from that arm. Keep that arm nice and loose as it can help you leverage your body over to one side to get a larger stretch. Switch sides. We of course are going to stretch both sides. So let your original arm go down to your side as you lift the other one up overhead again and lean over to the other side. Feel that good stretch. It can go from your shoulder blade all the way down to your belt line if you're stretching right. Switch sides. Let that arm return to your side as you lift the other one up to return to the original side. We're going to stretch each side 3 times. So keep each exercise and stretch light as to be able to complete the whole time. Switch sides. Make sure you continue to breathe during this activity. You should never hold your breath while exercising. In this stretch, you can try to breathe into the side of your ribs to help increase that stretch throughout your ribs. Your lungs can expand to help mobilize those ribs as much as possible. Switch sides. With this last time leaning towards the first side, make sure you take it nice and easy, but make sure you keep the same intensity of the stretch throughout, if not increase it. Don't go too quickly with the stretch, but make sure you are comfortable so you can last the entire time. Switch sides. This is our final side leaning stretch. If your hand does go numb or feels awkward, feel free to take breaks during this stretch. Often with your hands over your head, blood can be shunted to your hands, causing them to go numb earlier than you would like.
Switching activities.
Our next activity will be to do a seated march. Of course, we start off with a nice tall posture. I don't want you guys slouching back into your chair or leaning too far forward. With my hip flexibility, I get a little bit above 90 degrees. Even if you just slightly lift your foot off the ground, that is more than good enough to start. But always challenge yourself to move more and better. From here, I have my hands on my hips. You can have your hands on an armrest. I place mine here for convenience, but you do not have to put yours in your hips. Make sure to keep them going back and forth without excessive lean to one side to help yourself lift the leg. By trying to keep your posture straight up and down, you can help work your core by not allowing gravity to sway you back and forth.
Switching activities.
Next, we will perform an active hamstring stretch. So you start by reaching under one thigh and connecting your hands underneath. From here, you lift your thigh up and then kick out. I keep my toes pointing up to increase the amount of calf stretch I get also. If you do not want to get a calf stretch with this exercise, feel free to keep your ankle loose or your toes pointing down. We go back and forth, briefly pausing from 2 to 3 seconds on each leg. Since we're doing so many reps, it is not necessary to hold each leg longer than that 2 or 3 seconds. Make sure you keep up with each leg, performing them back to back without any significant pauses or rests. This should not be too exhausting, but you should feel a good amount of stretch behind your thigh and maybe knee.
Switching activities.
Next, we'll be working some brain activity and conditioning by improving our coordination of our legs and arms at the same time. As you see here, I am simultaneously lifting my right knee with my left hand and vice versa. So that way I lift my left hand and right knee. This is a traditional way of walking also, as when we walk, we push our left knee forward as our right hand goes forward, and vice versa for our left knee and right hand. Keep this going back and forth at a pace that you would walk at also. This movement is generally helpful for improving your brain coordination for various activities. Try to make sure to not get stuck where both hand and knee on the same side are moving. If this happens, pause, reset, and come back to this exercise, and maybe do more on your own.
Switching activities.
The next activity is often called reverse flies. We start with our hands in front of our chest and bring them out wide, making a large T out of our body and arms. Try to keep your shoulder blades pinned back, especially when your arms are all the way out and back. As your hands return back forward, try not to let your shoulders roll forward and produce a bad posture look, but instead keep your chest up and try to keep your shoulder blades back. By improving the strength and coordination of your shoulder blades in this activity, you can help resist many effects of aging and gravity that drag us into bad slouching forward posture. Don't go so far back that you feel any pain in your shoulder, but make sure you work front to back as much as you can without causing any pain or discomfort.
Switching activities.
Our next activity is clapping overhead. Here I have my palms up from that T position from the last activity. With my palms facing up, I bring my hands together up overhead. You can clap if you want. It is not necessary, but you might find it more fun. As my hands go up, they can rotate so that my palms face forward and away from myself, if this feels better. Do not worry about how high you go if your shoulders start hurting, but instead try to keep your shoulder blades in good posture to improve your ability to maintain proper shoulder blade and shoulder joint alignment. This is a challenging activity, especially with a shoulder issue. If you're working on this, you might want to try this in front of a mirror so you can see if there's any asymmetries in your shoulder, as I have noticed I have asymmetries in my own shoulders.
Switching activities.
Our next activity is seated hamstring stretch. So I go to the edge of my chair without making a tip forward, get my knee nice and straight, and put the back of my heel on the ground. I keep my spine straight and lean forward from my hips, feeling a stretch in my hamstrings. Switch sides. After switching legs, I place my hands on my thigh of my leg that I'm stretching. This helps gives me a base of support so I do not topple forward. I also have my forearm on my bent knee to give myself additional support in this position. Switch sides. As we stretch our hamstrings, we are holding them approximately 30 seconds at a time. If you feel like this muscle group is tight or sore, feel free to spend more time later stretching them out. We are performing 3 stretches on each. Switch sides. As you go back and forth from each side, take note of which leg feels tighter. This might indicate that you are weaker or need to spend more time stretching that tighter side. If anything, let your physical therapist know so you can be addressed accordingly.
Switching activities.
Our next activity is abdominal bracing with leg lifts. Starting with your feet on the ground, your spine will press back and into the chair as you hold it with your tummy muscles. As you lift your legs, your spine should not move, and only the hip joint allows your legs to lift up. Pause briefly. As I start off seated here, my pelvis feels flush to the seat portion of the chair. This sets up my spine to be pushing towards the back of the chair with my tummy tight. We never want our spine arching. Pause briefly. If you cannot control your back from arching as you lift up your feet, attempt to perform this activity first on your toes and then gradually work up to where the strength of your stomach can keep your back curved and not arched.
Switching activities.
With our next activity, we are going to look over our shoulder and stretch out our spine and ribs. Do not force or bounce on this activity as it could do harm to your spine, but instead keep it light as you hold this position. Switch directions. As we switch sides, I put my opposite hand on the outside of my knee to give me a little more pulling force. Of course, I'm not trying to strain the maximum, but keep the stretch nice and easy so I can hold it the entire time. Switch directions. As we unwind from this position and return to the first stretched side, try to feel for what might be feeling tight or painful. Nothing in this exercise series will ever make you hurt more than you already do, but pain might already linger. Switch directions. One more time, we're rotating to keep ourselves nice and symmetrical, keeping our balance of flexibility and strength equal. We want to keep symmetry so that way our spine doesn't start pulling in the easier direction, and we want to make sure our body continues to go straight as it can.
Switching activities.
This next activity is often called seated push-ups or press-ups. From here, I push my fists into the seat pad as my elbows straighten and my shoulder blades feel like they're going together and down. Make sure as you go up and down while letting your elbows bend and straighten that they do not lock out. You don't want to lock out in this exercise, but instead keep a continuous movement throughout the time. If it hurts too much to use your fist, you can try to use your open palm. Or if you have armrests, you can use the armrest to get your back end off of the chair much more readily. With this chair, it was very soft, and I was sitting deep in it. This did not allow for my back end to lift up very much. Try to use your arms only and not let your legs take over, as they should be stronger than your arms already. This is an arms and shoulder exercise.
Switching activities.
This last activity I call shin tracers. So while seated up nice and tall, you are going to attempt to trace your shin bone with the heel of your other foot, going from your ankle all the way up to your knee without leaning or compensating to perform the movement. If you are unable to get all the way up to your knee, don't feel bad, because this requires significant hip rotation flexibility. This ability is quite often limited when you have back, hip, knee, and possibly ankle troubles. Do what you can. If you do start experiencing any pain in the front of your hip, feel free to move up and down your shin less. If you can, allow that knee to fall out wide as your shin is traced by that foot. This will allow it to do more rotation, which is an important move to have for walking and transitioning between chairs. Thank you for taking the time to perform these exercises with me. I know you are able to complete them all, even if they were not exactly like I performed them. As always, I hope you are doing well, and I look forward to seeing you soon.